When I gave up self-tanning almost 3 years ago after 20 years of fake baking, I had no idea that it would lead to my most watched YouTube video here on my channel. My original makeup hacks for pale skin video has almost 75,000 views as the time I'm recording this, which for a tiny channel like mine is huge. So today I'm back with even more of my pale skin makeup hacks and tips, including how to get the perfect lip from within glow on your cheeks, never again while your highlighter looks streaky. I'm also going to show you how to accommodate eyeshadow trends to pale skin, like this Siren eye trend that's been around for a while now. There's no gatekeeping here. I promise to show you everything in depth. Let's dive in. All right, so we're gonna start in completely natural light. I'm just sitting in front of a window. There's no lamps, overhead lighting, or anything to warm up my skin or change the tone or anything. I think it's very helpful to have like natural light just so that you can see kind of how things actually look a little bit more true to form, true to color. We're gonna start off with a few of my favorite skin prep tips for pale skin. I know that people really do not love to be told about skin prep when it comes to a makeup video, but here's the thing. With very pale skin, if you wake up, I know it because it happens to me all the time, if you wake up with a bad skin day, there's really not a lot of hiding behind makeup. You just don't have enough pigment in your skin, and we certainly don't want to go very full coverage when we have very pale skin. I talk about that in my first pale skin hacks video. If you haven't seen it, check it out after this one. I give a lot of little tidbits in that one as well. So there are basically two main problems that I see in my own skin and in other people who have pale skin. And those kind of two recurring problems, obviously we all have different skin, you can have acne, things like that. But the two main things that I see happen are, number one, like dullness, just like a lack of life to the skin, and redness. So I'm gonna give you two really great products, really great ways to tackle those that you can do very quickly right before you apply your makeup. This is not like a routine thing, this is like a spot treatment almost. So if I wake up and I notice that my skin looks kind of dull, I don't have a glow, I pretty much know right off that that's because I kind of have like a little layer of maybe dead skin that just is refusing to fall off. So I will use a mask, an exfoliating mask, and my absolute favorite for like a quick fix is this one from Ren Clean Skincare. This is their Glycol Lactic Radiance Renewal Mask. I swear by this. If I wake up and my skin looks dull and has a little bit of surface texture, that ever happens to you, this mask will become your best friend. When that happens, I throw this on. It says to leave it on for 10 minutes, but I leave it on like 2 to 3 minutes, however much time I have. And if you have more sensitive skin, you can again just do 1, 2, 3 minutes. You're still gonna notice an incredible difference from this stuff. It's never irritated my skin. Again, this is a clean skincare brand. I've never noticed an irritation. What I do notice is that this gives my skin a glow and it gets rid of that dullness like that. It is fantastic. I don't know what I did before this stuff. It truly is just like the best quick fix. I don't use this every day. Again, I only use this when I wake up and notice my skin is dull, and I will do it right before I prep for makeup. Like I have 2-3 minutes, put this on, rinse it right off, and then go into moisturizer, sunscreen, foundation. So the second issue is redness. Happens a lot. It's just because it's hormonal, number one. Almost all women are gonna have redness, but when you don't have a lot of melanin in your skin, there's nothing to hide that redness. So I always say you can use a green primer, but to me that's like a last resort. I did recommend one in my last video. I do think it's better if you can maybe cut the redness out at the source in your skincare. So this is not enough redness for me to worry about. I know my foundation is gonna cover it, like a nice light medium foundation is gonna cover this. But if I do have a little bit extra redness, especially like in the summer maybe, not from sunburn, but just because, you know, when I go outside more, even though I'm wearing sunscreen, my skin does get a little bit more irritated. Pale skin is often sensitive skin, so it's good to calm that redness. My favorite product for this now is another product product from Ren Clean Skincare. This is their Evercalm Barrier Support Antioxidant Moisturizer. This is fantastic. If I have a little bit of extra redness, I throw this on as my like moisturizer. So rather than my regular moisturizer, I use this one instead, and it does calm down the redness pretty quickly. I like to give it about 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure that it's done all it can do. That way I know I'm not gonna go in later and cover up more redness than I need to, because truth be told, you're touching your skin, we all know that makes it red. I like to give it that 5-10 minutes for the moisturizer to sit, and then I know, okay, this is the amount of redness I'm dealing with on this day. Highly, highly recommend that entire brand of Ren Clean Skincare. So good. I really don't know why I just have been sleeping on it, and I don't feel like it's ever talked about or hyped up, but everything I have tried from that brand is really good. All right, last step before we get into foundation is going to be obviously primer. Now in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun is coming out, and so I really suggest, if you can, find a sunscreen that doubles as a primer. That way you're cutting one step out of your makeup routine. You're not having to put too many products on, which again, I think is helpful because pale skin is often sensitive skin. The less product we compile on our face, I think the better. So I love sunscreens that double as a foundation primer. These are my favorite ones. I'm just gonna share them. The Clinique Pep Start, absolutely adore this one. This is a really nice one just for like an everyday. Then I have the Super Defense City Block from Clinique. This one I use if I feel like I'm gonna be wearing my foundation a little bit longer than normal, because I do notice that it helps a little bit with the grip and the longevity. So if you're someone who your foundation slips a little bit and you need a little more grip in a primer, I would suggest this one. It's really good. And then my all-time favorite, this is the Glow Screen from Supergoop. I have right here this shade Sunrise, but they do have a new shade called Dawn, and I've really been liking that one. It has like a pink pearl to it. That's their newest lightest shade. So if you ever tried this one, the original, and it was a little bit too dark for you, the champagne shade, give the pink pearl one a try. I'll show you a swatch of it right now. It is really beautiful, and I think it's gonna be really good for those of you who said that the Sunrise version of the Glow Screen was a little bit too dark for you. I'm gonna use this sunscreen from Supergoop today. Again, this is the original color, which was called Sunrise. I'm using this one just to show you in case you haven't tried this, because you may be wondering which one is better for you, Dawn or Sunrise. And this is my original favorite, so I just want to show it to you because if you're around my skin tone, then this one should work fine for you under foundation. I actually don't mind it without foundation. Obviously my redness would need to chill out a little bit for you to get an idea of it, but I don't mind this without foundation, but it's just got a little bit more of a glow, so I don't tend to wear that on my no makeup days. I tend to go for the Clinique City Block on no makeup days. Let me know if you'd like to see an entire sunscreen video, because I have a lot of opinions on sunscreen and I would be happy to share them with you. All right, for foundation, we're gonna go in. This is the Kosas Revealer Foundation. This is the shade 100, very light natural. This is one of my new favorite foundations. The shade range is fantastic, and I love that they have a lightest shade in neutral, which is my next tip. So I worked at Ulta. I was a manager at Ulta, and then I also worked at the Chanel counter. I was a makeup artist for Chanel. I was one of the Chanel girls. I had this like awful black uniform I had to wear, and they didn't have my size because at the time, most of the women working the Chanel counter were much older than me. I was the youngest, the youngest one that I ever met, because at the time I think I was 22 years old. So I was younger than anyone else. And I remember I just had to wear this big, like boxy, it was a very like gamine style outfit, because you know, that's kind of the Coco Chanel style. And that's very much not my body type, but I made it work. Anyway, my point here, I have shade matched a lot of people, and I have to tell you guys, it's much more common that someone is going to look better in a neutral than in like a pink undertoned foundation. So I get this comment a lot of times from fair skinned people, and while I was shade matching, that they would just have a hard time finding the right foundation. They would do all like the jewelry tests, all those kind of different tests that there are out there about which undertone you have. And they'd be like, well, I'm very clearly a cool undertone, but the foundation foundations just don't match me because they were shopping for cool tone foundations. Pink foundations don't look great on most people, even if you have cool undertones. So I always say that I'm neutral to cool in my undertones, because here's the thing, if I do all of those tests, like the jewelry, the white piece of paper, if I do all of that, I'm gonna come out cool toned. But when it comes to foundation, if I put on a cool undertoned foundation, I almost always look like one of those like sick koi fish at like a bad sushi joint. And they don't look they don't look great on everyone. I think you have to be pretty fair toned and like have a pretty obvious pink undertone for a pink tone foundation to work well for you. So my suggestion would be try out a neutral foundation if you're having a hard time getting a really good shade match, even if you know that your skin is cool. Still give the neutral a try. Same thing for warm. Maybe, you know, your warm tone, that doesn't mean you necessarily are going to use a warm tone foundation in every brand, okay? There is no standard of how brands calculate what is warm and what is cool toned. So you just don't know what you're getting from brand to brand. So I always say, give the neutral foundation a shot. Don't just assume like you can only look at warm or cool shades because you know you're warm or cool. Also, I'm gonna do a full video on my favorite fair neutral foundations that will be coming out very soon. So if you're interested in seeing that, be sure that you're subscribed to my channel so that when it comes out, it will pop up in your subscription feed. All right, now that foundation is done, we're gonna go straight into eyes today because I'm gonna do not a dramatic eye, but I'm gonna do like an eye look, and I'm gonna show you how you can adapt the very popular Siren eyeshadow look for pale skin. I think you can use pretty much any look on pale skin, but you do need to make a couple accommodations, which I think most of the time people need to make accommodations, but I can show you the ones specifically for pale skin. So going in, I'm gonna prime with my concealer, and I like to do my concealer on my eyelids because number one, if you didn't know, you should not put foundation on your lids. I went a long time without knowing that. And number two, this just goes ahead and covers up those veins that we can often see on our eyelids. Especially when you have fair skin, your skin can be a little bit thinner. And again, there's just not pigment to kind of cover up those little veins that everyone has on their eyelids. So using a concealer gives you a nice blank canvas rather than having like those tones of your veins coming through. Now, because the Siren eye look has something in the inner corner, I'm gonna go ahead and brighten my inner corner. And so there's a couple tricks here. So number one, obviously, we're gonna do our concealer. Gonna get the inner corner, and I'm probably being a little brighter than I normally would be, but that's because since we do put a little bit of liner, we're actually gonna use shadow instead of liner on that inner corner. We wanna make sure that we are brightening it up before we do that because it's gonna be very difficult to brighten it up afterwards. And the truth is, when you are very pale, you often kind of have some darkness right in here, and we don't want that there if we can help it. So we've got that down, and I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit of loose powder just to set under my under eyes, but I'm not going to press it in. I'm just gonna kind of let it sit on top very loosely so that if there is any fallout, we can swipe that away because honestly, let's be real, when you're pale, fallout is like your worst enemy. So I just use like a loose brush. I'm using the Givenchy Prisme Libre powder, which I love. And I'm just gonna kind of do this just so I have a little bit under there. And later on, we'll go press that in. But for right now, we just want it sitting very loosely on top of the skin in case we're gonna need it. Ooh, little particles flying everywhere. All right, so we talked about brightening up that inner corner. So we've already got our concealer there. The next thing we're gonna do is something that I've recently started doing that I love. I'm gonna take like a matte ivory shade. This one is from the Stone Cold Fox palette. It's this one right here. I'm gonna put that on the inner corner of my eye. I used to hate inner corner highlight, and then I realized that it's not that I don't like highlighting in there, it's that when you do it with a shimmer, I think it looks really stark and unnatural often on pale skin. And so I've realized that by using a matte, almost white, this one's a little bit like a cream or ivory, I can get a really nice inner corner highlight that brightens everything up in there without looking unnatural. So the whole purpose of the Siren eye is kind of to elongate the eye and give you like that, I guess basically like you're a siren and you're trying to lure men to their death, like their inevitable doom. But a lot of times it's done with like these very deep, sharp colors. It can be done with like winged liner on the inner corner. It just can be so stark, especially on fair skin. So anytime we're looking at like a makeup look we want to recreate, especially for the eyes, it's good to keep in mind the fact that with pale skin, you automatically go into every eye makeup look with the contrast already bumped up. Imagine you had a piece of paper and it was like light brown and you drew on it with a black pen. There's gonna be less contrast than if you take a black pen and draw on a stark white piece of paper. So think of ourselves as stark white pieces of paper. So we need to kind of adjust the contrast a little bit so that we're not going more stark of a difference than we're wanting to. Now, if you wanna go like full out, very contrasted, you absolutely can, but I prefer something a little bit more demure, a little bit softer. I think that looks better on me, and I think it looks better on a lot of pale people. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use shadows instead of liquid liner or eyeliner just to make the look a little bit softer. And I'm gonna be using this palette. This is the Glam palette from Natasha Denona. This is one of my all-time favorite palettes, neutral palettes for pale skin. It's got cool tones in there, but then you also have some true neutrals. So I feel like this works for so many pale people and you can get so many looks out of this palette. So I go in just with a big fluffy brush. This is an E40 from Sigma, and I'm gonna take just my regular eyeshadow powder and kind of powder the lids to get like a nice soft base going on so everything blends out nicely. And then I'm gonna go in with the transition shade here, which is just slightly darker than my skin tone, just barely. And I'm gonna go ahead and make that siren shape, but I'm gonna focus it on the outer half of my eyes. So I go in, I find where my orbital bone is right here, your eye socket, and I put this right up under that and then pull it up, kind of flick it out. So we're imagining like we have a line here from the lower lash line, and that's the line that I'm following once I get to the edge. So I just do that and flick it out. And then once you have barely anything left, you can kind of blend this inner half of the eye. So always just keeping that shape. Then I'm gonna do the same thing with a slightly deeper shade. Again, whatever neutrals you have will work for this, but I really love, love, love this palette. Again, I just tap off my brush a ton, and that's because I really want everything to build up. Because with pale skin, that really is the name of the game. Blending everything and making sure that you're using very blendable products is going to save you a lot of time because you do not have that much pigment on your skin to hide behind. So going in with stuff that's a little bit more buildable is really helpful. And these shadows from Natasha Denona just blend out beautifully. And see, we've used very light colors and we've used barely any, and we're already getting the top shape that we need there. So that's what I'm talking about with, you know, kind of softening down some of like the trending looks with the contrast in mind. All right, now I'm gonna do the eyelid. I like to use something bright. So I'm gonna use this that says center eyelid right here. And oh, actually, you know what? I'm gonna use inner corner. It's a little bit brighter and I like that. That's a nice shimmer. And I put that directly on my mobile lid, but not going up too high because this is really not the focus. The focus is gonna be that wing that goes on the outside as well as the inside. But I still like to have a little bit of shimmer to the lids because I do think that it really softens everything up, and especially on pale skin, it gives a little bit of life and dimension so that we're not ending up looking one-dimensional or flat. That's something I talked about at length in my first video that I did like this, about how we want to keep dimension in our face, because when we go in like all matte or all full coverage, we can kind of end up looking like a moon because there's just no dimension or life left. You know, we need that color, that shimmer, something to give us the dimension and the life. All right, now let's get to the like more difficult part, which is not actually very difficult. We're gonna do it very easy, very simply. So all you're gonna need for this is an angled liner brush, and this is an Eco Tools brush. I got this from Amazon. I will link them below. I use this like all the time. Also, I've now noticed that when I say link it, it often sounds like I'm saying Lincoln. I don't know why. But it does. I get ahead of myself. All right, so a lot of times when we see this liner, this Sirenized liner, we see a black liner. So you might think, okay, well, let's go in with this dark brown. No, we're not even gonna go that dark. We're gonna go in with this smoke shade, which I know you're thinking, that's not dark enough to do that. It is. It really is. Sometimes I myself, I think just from watching people do makeup, I see them go in with like a dark shade and I think, oh yes, so I go in with a dark shade. Not recognizing that dark compared to my skin tone is not the same as what is dark compared to their skin tone. So I pick up a little bit of that on the brush and I do it like flat. So I tap it in there flat and then I kind of just scrape the bristles at this like 45-degree angle on both sides. That way I'm making sure that the product is on that flat part of the angled brush. And that's gonna help give me this nice like little defined thing that I wanna do in the inner corner. So I'm gonna get a little bit closer for you. And here's what you're gonna do. You're literally gonna stamp it right here, like almost in your eyeball. Don't go too far outside the way that you see it done a lot, because that to me ends up giving a little bit more contrast than what I want. So I literally take it and I stamp it at an angle. And if I want a little bit more, I'll go a little bit further, just right into that inner corner to get that siren. And now do you see that? Look at the contrast between this eye and that eye. We've already gotten that contrast with just that tiny amount of product and in this like very like medium toned brown. We didn't need much to get that. So that's the lesson there. Now we're gonna do the same on the other side. I like to just do both inner corners before I do the outer corners so that my brush is like literally the same. Because you know, once you do the outer corners, maybe it's gonna loosen up the bristles a little bit. I don't know. I just like to do this part first because to me, this is the scary part. So just that nice little stamp, and then I want a little bit more sharpness, so I'll go barely outside. It's like very clearly defined and very clearly there. So you don't have to worry that, oh, that's not enough. Like, it's gonna be enough. All right, now we're gonna take that same shade and we're gonna make a wing on the outer corner, and we're gonna do it like a half wing. So we're just gonna go about to right here. That's maybe a third in. So I like to take the brush, follow my lower lash line up, and then I like to stamp and drag. So I have all the wing I want there, and now I'm gonna connect it down to about a third, maybe halfway. Now this went a little bit further than I liked, so literally just take your finger and knock off that edge. I like to take my finger now, and then you can literally just like wipe it away. And now I have the exact shape that I want. So it's so easy. Don't freak out if you like have more than you want. You can literally clean that up with your finger and then go back in with like your damp beauty blender and just to clean that off. I used to experiment so much with makeup and then I kind of stopped for a long time because I felt like it's just like every look I didn't look like it did on other people on Instagram. And then I realized like, oh, it's because I'm pale and I just have to make some adjustments. Same thing on this side. I pull it like just straight into the lashes. Like I'm gonna go down and hit my nose. That way the line just tapers off very cleanly. And again, this one I'll probably just clean up with my fingernail. Ta-da, exactly what I wanted. All right, now to finish out the eye look, I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of a lighter shade than what we use for the liner. A lot of times people will use the same liner shade, but I think it's just a little bit more contrast than we want. So I'm gonna use this shade, this crease shade right here, and just a nice like little smudger brush. And I'm gonna smudge along the outer third of my eye to get that nice balance. I want balance, but I don't want it to be too much on the lower lash line. Now, with this look, a lot of time people go in with a liner on the waterline. I don't like to do that. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm not gonna put anything on the waterline. Now, normally, one of my favorite tips is to use like an ivory pencil on the waterline, but today I'm not gonna do that since this is more of an elongated rather than a doe-eyed look. But if you are wanting a little bit more drama to add to this and you want to elongate a little bit more, close the eye a little bit more so it is a little bit more like a siren, like bedroom eye, you can absolutely do that. My suggestion would be to use like a light gray or a very light brown pencil to do that. Don't go in with something black because then you're just gonna completely close your eye off and you are gonna have more contrast than you were intending. Now that my eye makeup is done, I'm gonna sweep away any of that excess powder and then I'm gonna take one of my favorite little beauty puffs from Amazon, and I'm just gonna press to set whatever is left in there really nicely. Now, at this point in the game, I love to use a setting spray or a glycerin-based spray just because I am talking through things, which means I'm going a little bit slower in my makeup. So to add a little bit of life back in and to make it where my contour, my blush, and my highlight are gonna blend really beautifully, I just want to get a little bit of spray on my face. I've been loving this one from Kaja. This is their Mist Me in Pina Colada. Very refreshing. For contour today, I'm using one of my favorite contours. This is the Westman Atelier Face Trace Stick and Biscuit. I'm not gonna walk through contour because I just did an entire how to contour pale skin video. If you haven't seen it yet, be sure to check that out after this one. So I'm gonna do my contour and then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna show you my favorite cheek hack to get you the most beautiful lit from within highlight that is never streaky. As I have my contour on, before we get to the cheeks, I am gonna go ahead and set my lips up for success. You're gonna think I'm crazy, but just trust me, when we get to the end, you're gonna understand why I did this. So I'm gonna take one of my favorite red lipsticks, any red lipstick you like. This one is So Red from Charlotte Tilbury, and I'm gonna put that on my lips. I just kinda dab it on, rub it in. Doesn't have to be too perfect. Just make sure you've got, your lips covered. Just trust the process, okay? It looks crazy, but trust the process. So I like to leave that on while I'm blending out my contour, just because I like this to have a few minutes to set before I wipe it off. Because yes, we are gonna wipe it off, and trust me, it is gonna be the most beautiful bitten pink lip you have ever seen in your life. Like, it's amazing. All right, so my favorite cheek hack to get a beautiful lit from within glow is to simply do a cream highlight under your cream blush. This is my favorite thing ever to do. So you can do this with any cream highlight that you love. A couple of my favorites are the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light Wand and Pillow Talk, which is actually how I first discovered this trick, because you can see that's a little bit too dark for me to put on top of a blush and it look natural. So I love putting it under the blush. I also love the Armani Fluid Sheer. This is number 2, is my favorite color. It is absolutely gorgeous. But today I'm going to use the Merit Cava. I love this highlighter, and this one is actually light enough. You can see that you can use this even if you are gonna put it on top. It looks really beautiful, but I love putting it under. So I just go exactly where I would highlight, and I kind of go a little bit ham with it. You can also put it on your fingers if you prefer. It looks really beautiful either way. And I just go in on the tops of my cheekbones, exactly where I would normally highlight. And by putting this down first, it just really does make it look completely lit from within. Now you can see this highlight is really beautiful on its own, but still I want it a little bit softer. And by putting it under the blush, I'm gonna get that softness that I'm looking for. So I'm gonna go in with a gorgeous pink blush that I've been loving. This is from Clé de Peau. This is their blush cream in number 2. And I'm gonna put that right on top. And this stuff is like deceiving because it goes on so sheer, but the color payoff is fantastic. So you can see I've got my blush and I just have this perfect lit from within candlelight kind of glow. I am always looking for a candlelight glow. I feel like candlelight is so flattering. Have you ever seen how you look in candlelight? You look beautiful. I already know you do because I know I look beautiful in candlelight. So you must too. Honestly, most flattering light ever. So I'm always looking for light like that. And I know what you're thinking, Ashley. This cheek with this lip is too much, but just you wait until you see what this lip is gonna look like. So now we have this gorgeous lit from within glow, and we're gonna set the rest of the face. Now, I am a big proponent of only setting where you actually need it. So I'm just gonna go in everywhere that I feel like I'm a little bit more dewy than I want, and I'm gonna set there. So for me, that's like around the nose. I think we all get a little bit around the nose right there. Even if you have dry skin, I feel like that's just a problem area for everybody. And I'm gonna get a little bit around the forehead. Now, for my neck, because I just feel like it's so difficult once you start putting color products on for your neck to look in line, because let's be honest, everyone's neck is paler than their face, but if you're very pale, that is especially the case. I love to use a little bit of bronzer, and how I mostly use bronzer now is just for the very like outer edges of my face for a little bit of warmth and to kind of warm up my neck a little bit. So I'm using my very favorite bronzer right now. This is a new discovery the last couple months. I'm obsessed with it. It is the House Labs bronzer. I wear the shade Light Level 1. It is a beautiful bronzer. It's pretty neutral. It is not too warm at all. You'll see, like, it's got a nice balanced tone, so it doesn't make me look orange. Like, this stuff is amazing. So I like to use a little bit on my neck, and then I just get the outer edges of my face. I'm not trying to go with my contour, and I'm not trying to use it across my face because, let's be honest, if you're pale, that's not where you're naturally gonna have a tan, because you probably are not naturally going to have a tan. So for me, this is the most flattering bronzer placement to give me just a little bit of warmth and make sure that my face kind of melds in with the rest of my body. A couple other bronzers I love are the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow. It is a beautiful one, as well as Guerlain, the #1 Cool, and honestly, one of my all-time favorites. This is like, if it's between two bronzers, it would be between the House Labs and this guy right here. This is the Gucci in shade 01, their bronzer. It is just such a perfect bronzer tone. Like, oh my God, I love this stuff so much, and the packaging to die for. All right, so now that that's done, we're gonna mist ourselves, and then we're gonna wipe off this lip, and you're gonna see the magic happen. So we've got the lipstick. I just take, this is honestly a baby wipe. It's not a makeup wipe. I don't want a makeup wipe because I don't want to remove all of it. I want to leave a stain. So I go in with a baby wipe and I very carefully wipe off. And then, like, once it's mostly wiped off, I kind of rub my lips together. That'll kind of redistribute it so I can wipe again. And then once we're here, this is exactly what I want. I've wiped off the product. I can kind of soften up those edges a little bit, but I now have the perfect bitten pink lip. Like, I cannot recreate this color and this finish any other way. And the funny thing is, like, I completely discovered this on accident from just all the times that I've removed my makeup from my beauty biography videos, like, that I make, because almost every single, like, 1930s, 1940s starlet wore a red lip. So I'm always putting on red lips when I make those videos. And when I would go to wipe it off, I would notice, like, oh my God, I wish I could just get that lip color and bottle it because it's perfect. And so I decided, hey, why don't I just put the lipstick on, wipe it off, and give myself the stain? So I love to do this, and then I put on like a clear gloss or lip oil. My favorite right now is this pink one from Dior, the lip oil. This barely has any pigment to it at all, you guys. It's basically clear because it's so sheer. It just looks beautiful on top of this, but any clear gloss would work. This lip is perfect. It literally looks like I've been just like in Scandinavia eating cherries. Do they have cherries in Scandinavia? It looks so natural with the rest of my skin. It just looks like I have gorgeous, naturally bitten lips. I told you guys, it's magic. Magic. And that's the finished look. I absolutely love it. Honestly, I cannot stop staring at my lips. This is like my favorite lip hack of all time. I'm obsessed with it and how gorgeous it looks. I hope you took away something helpful from this video. Like I said, I have a whole other video of these like little tips and tricks for fair skin. If you haven't seen it yet, I will link it down below. Also check out my how to contour pale skin video I just did. Another one of like my most like recent favorite videos that I've done. Let me know in the comments below, what challenges, what things are there that you need help with your pale skin makeup? I'm here to help. This is like kind of my passion now, being a pale person, which is hilarious given how long I self-tanned to not be a pale person, but I'm live, laugh, loving it. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, you take care of yourself. Bye.